There are few men as controversial as Joachim Peiper. Some see him as a skilled military commander whose only goal was to achieve victory, no matter the cost. Many others see him as a brutal instrument of evil, used by the worst of humanity to brutalise and defeat their enemies. In today's episode, however, I will not be delving into Peiper's war service in great detail. Instead, I shall be talking about his post-war life, and in particular, his brutal and shocking death over 30 years after the war ended. As the Second World War reached its conclusion, Peiper was arrested. The list of war criminals was long, and Peiper's name was near the top. His men had committed numerous war crimes on the Eastern Front, as well as in Italy, but it was for the killing of American POWs during the Ardennes Offensive, and in particular at Malmedy, that Peiper was most wanted for. His men had murdered 84 unarmed soldiers with machine guns before moving on. He was put on trial and sentenced to death for the Malmedy massacre, as well as the other atrocities committed by his unit. But this death sentence was not carried out. The sentence was commuted to life imprisonment. Shockingly, this was commuted again, and Peiper was released from prison in 1956. Upon his release, he worked for Porsche and Volkswagen. He remained a staunch Nazi after the war, and worked hard to try to rehabilitate the image of the Waffen-SS. In the early 1970s, Peiper and his wife made the unusual decision to move to Travers in France. Despite attempts to keep a low profile, Peiper was recognised several times by former French soldiers, resistance fighters and communists, and a campaign began against Peiper. Leaflets were distributed throughout the village, noting every one of Peiper's war crimes and his living there. Outrage began to grow that an ardent Nazi was allowed to live free in France. Graffiti began to appear around his property, and despite being advised to leave France, Peiper stayed. On Bastille Day in 1976, smoke was seen coming from Peiper's house, and the fire brigade was called. Upon their arrival, they battled the blaze, and after extinguishing the fire, the firefighters found the charred remains of a man. It was said that the remains of Peiper were barely recognisable as a human body. Next to him was a pistol and a rifle. Empty shotgun cartridges were also found around the property. It was determined that the fire was an arson attack, started with Molotov cocktails. Bullet holes were found in the trees surrounding the house, meaning Peiper had spotted his attackers and fired upon them. It was determined during the autopsy that he died of smoke inhalation and burns. After his death, a group called the Avengers claimed responsibility, but this has never been confirmed. Others suspect that the Communist Party had a hand in his death, while some others believe that the body wasn't actually Peiper and the incident was a hoax and he escaped to South America like so many other Nazis. What is true, though, is that Joachim Peiper was a brutal leader. He had links to some of the worst men humanity had produced. He witnessed firsthand the horrific crimes of genocide inside the concentration camps. He lived 30 years after the war, and many saw his death as repercussions for the crimes committed by himself and his men. That concludes today's episode. Hope you all enjoyed it. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and comment as well. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you very soon. Cheery bye.